Hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual travel event. Today, we're going to be focusing on our 2025 member appreciation trip to Iceland. Let's start off with some introductions. My name is Tony Adebato, and I have the pleasure of working here at AAA with our group travel team.
And I'm Amy Short. I oversee our travel technology and help our travel advisors behind the scenes. But I'm joining you today as the trip leader for this fantastic trip to Iceland.
So, let's address some housekeeping items before we dive in. First, we have everyone placed on mute and their cameras off. We ask that you keep those off throughout the presentation so that we don't distract from the presentation for everyone else in attendance. There is a chat feature that we encourage you to use to ask all of your questions, and we'll have one of our specialists that is ready to answer those questions as we move throughout the event. Also, you may see some additional tools and features of WebEx, such as annotation. It may look like a squiggly line. Please don't touch that. It will also disrupt the event. So, Amy, let's start talking about this fantastic trip.
I am so excited about Iceland. I've been there a couple of times and this looks amazing.
So, first, the basics. We are talking about Iconic Iceland. That's the name of this departure. It is 8 nights, including an overnight flight from the United States to Reykjavik, and it runs from October 4th through the 12th next year. It will explore the south of Iceland, so you're not going to head and do a full tour of the country, but we're focusing on the parts that make sense for this time of year in this destination. Today, we'll talk about why we selected this trip, the incredible value that we built in, and of course, review the day to day itinerary so you know about all the fantastic sights that you're going to see along the way. But first, let's talk about traveling with a group.
A lot of people are kind of wary of traveling with a group, but really it is the most easy and hassle free way to go on a vacation. Everything that you need to have the most enjoyable time in destination is done for you. So you still have the opportunities for some free time and can go out and explore on your own. But everything is planned for you when it comes to your accommodations, most of your meals, and of course, the excellent tour guides that are with you. You also get your AAA trip leader from AAA for your trip, and that's me this time. So we will focus on making sure that everything is going as planned. If you have any issues or concerns while you're there, I will be there to assist you along the way. And then, of course, you get to make new friends and have shared experiences with other like minded travelers. And like Tony already said, it's a really great value. There's so much things that are packed into this that you really can't get from anywhere else.
So let's talk about what a member appreciation trip is. So we've referred to this trip as a member appreciation trip. It's really the best of the best in terms of what we put together here at AAA. We only offer a member appreciation trip once or twice a year, and we really cycle out destinations based on what's interesting and unique, where we can provide an in-depth experience. We tend to look at this as a custom planned thank you for our most loyal members and travelers who have joined us on, trip after trip, year after year. So we really do build in plenty of exclusive experiences, meals, excursions that are just not included in your average off-the-shelf tour package that you can find anywhere. So we always include that best value, which means best pricing that we're able to offer, great inclusions, and always a commemorative gift for everybody who does join us on the trip. Plus, we've mentioned the experienced AAA trip leader, like Amy Short, that will be hosting or leading this trip, but we also have an executive host. So that means that for this particular trip, we're talking about AAA Club Alliance CEO Tom Wiedemann. And Tom will be joining you on this trip with his wife, Mary Jo. And Tom is just such a great trip leader and host. I mean, he's been with AAA for over 30 years. He's been our CEO here since 2018, and he's really just embraced the travel space. And he's led a number of great trips to places like Italy. They've done a cruise down the Rhine River with many of our guests, and just this year they've traveled to Spain.
It's so much fun traveling with Tom and Mary Jo. They really are just wonderful hosts. They make the time to make sure that everyone has individual attention, to get to know you, to share life experiences together. You're going to have a really great time traveling with the both of them. And as always, AAA is there to make sure everything goes smoothly for you.
And of course, one of our most experienced trip leaders is Amy Short, that's going to be traveling with you on this departure. So, Amy, why don't you share a little bit about yourself with our audience today?
So, sure, Tony. So, I've worked for AAA for over 25 years, most of which has been in the travel department, and I absolutely love travel. And one of the best parts of my job is getting to be a trip leader and go on these fantastic trips like Iceland. So, what that means as a trip leader is that I'm in constant communication with our group team to make sure that everything is going smoothly. I'm working with the in country guide to make sure that we are on time for things, that if there's anything that needs changed or adjusted, that we're addressing that up front. And of course, just to be there for you in case you have any questions or concerns. I also get to just join you and get to make a new friend, which is one of my favorite parts of the trip, of course. And on these trips, we've done everything from having like an Italian dinner in an olive grove with live music, or being out at midnight chasing the northern lights, which hopefully we'll get to do together. And just this last year, one of the highlights in Spain was actually what was happening on a motor coach ride between two of the large cities. We were going to be on the coach for a while, and it happened to be Tom's birthday. So we played games and we had fun and passed around some wine, and it was just a really good time. So going on these group trips really makes memories for a lifetime.
And I will share that Amy's unofficial title here at AAA is Director of Fun, so you couldn't be in better hands to make sure that you have a great time on this trip.
And I'm super excited that this trip is going to Iceland. So, as mentioned, I've been there twice, and it is a very popular destination. It has the most unique landscape of anywhere in the world. One minute you're looking at mountains, the next time it's a flat lava field. It's just breathtaking. It's a really easy flight from the East Coast. So easy that you can probably get there faster than you can get to some destinations on the West Coast. So it's great and it's easy to communicate. Most everyone there speaks English. So that is, if you have not been out of the country before, it's a really great first location to go to. And we have had the most positive feedback from past travelers on our Iceland groups. We do a few a year here at AAA Club Alliance to Iceland, and they are by far some of our most popular destinations. The single country itinerary is going to allow us an in depth opportunity to really learn more about Iceland. And we'll be able to stay multiple nights at most hotels, which is always nice that you don't have to pack and repack. And then, of course, it's a great destination for things like culinary. From their local source foods, we're going to have a really neat opportunity to learn how they grow food in Iceland when it's so cold certain times of the year. And you wouldn't think it, but they are really on the up and coming edge for beer and spirit distilleries. So we're going to be learning more about that as well. And of course, this time of the year is fantastic. It's not as cold as the heart of winter, but it is cold enough and dark enough that we will be able to chase the northern lights. So we'll have an awesome opportunity to see those lights.
And while we can never guarantee that you're going to see the northern lights, the fact is we have an excellent track record. So, as Amy mentioned, running 2 or 3 trips to Iceland a year, knock on wood, the last 3 years, every one of those trips has seen the northern lights. So, we are going to do our very best to make sure that you have that same experience. So, to share a bit about the value that we're bringing as part of this departure for you, again, you have the built-in security and guidance of both an executive host, our CEO, and Amy as your AAA trip leader, plus the in-destination travel director that is the local expert on everything that you're going to see and do. We've also covered most of your meals, so breakfast daily throughout the itinerary, 4 lunches, and 5 dinners with wine are included. So that means that there are only 3 lunches and 2 dinners that you're going to pick up on your own while you're in destination. Which, to be honest, I really enjoy that mix because as a traveler, I do like to find a local restaurant and head out and experience something on my own. We've also bundled in round trip airfare from Newark, New Jersey, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how that will work, but that value is built in for you as well. We have airport transfers for the group upon arrival into Iceland, and then when you are departing and heading home at the end of the trip. And gratuities. We've also pre bundled in the gratuities for the travel director, all of the local guides, hotel porterage, and restaurant staff. So you don't have to worry about how much you need to tip in destination with any of the things that we've covered. This is a fully custom built itinerary. So this is not a product that you're going to find through any other agency or with any other typical travel provider. We have worked with local operators in Iceland to package this together. So it is truly a custom experience. So again, just a quick review. We are going to start our journey in Reykjavik once we arrive as a group on Sunday, October 5th. We will spend a day in Reykjavik on Monday the 6th, and then we will head out to Thingvellir, Geyser, and Gullfoss on Tuesday, October 7th. And Amy and I are going to do our very best to pronounce some of these fabulous destinations for you. However, we make no guarantees about our pronunciation. And in fact, we like to consider this a learning trip, a learning journey, right? So when you are on the trip in destination, our local expert is going to tell you exactly how to pronounce all of these fabulous sites so that you aren't like Amy and myself at the moment, wondering how these things are said.
Instead, if you see us do this,
Reykjavik.
one of our producers will be inserting the right pronunciation for us.
We'll then cut down to Iceland's south shore on Wednesday, October 8th, and then head over to Skaftafell National Park and Jökulsárlón Glacial Lagoon on Thursday, October 9th. And here is where I'm going to pause for pronunciation,
Hveragerði.
and we'll spend some time returning to Reykjavik from that destination on Friday, October 10th. We'll then finish our trip up in Reykjavik on Saturday, the 11th, before we head out and return home on Sunday, the 12th. So, Amy, why don't we really dive in and talk about each day and some of the highlights and things that people can come to expect on the trip?
All right, day one.
So, first, we will start with your included round trip airfare from Newark to Reykjavik, that is on Iceland Air. And we find that bringing the group in together and leaving the US on one flight allows for a better experience upon arrival and departure in Iceland because the airport is about an hour away from town. And we can really use that time when we arrive to start touring, hitting the ground running while we're waiting for rooms to be ready at the hotel on that first night.
So, your AAA Travel Advisor will actually work with you and our group department to help you make your way to Newark as the connecting flight, or for those of you that live in that area as your origin, to then meet the group and we all will fly in together. So, you will actually find myself, Tom, and Mary Jo waiting for you at our terminal. And so, we'll travel as a group to Iceland, which the next part is one of my favorite things.
Right? So when we do arrive, as I mentioned, we'll stay in Reykjavik those first 2 nights, and we will be staying in Reykjavik at the Canopy by Hilton Reykjavik. This hotel is what we're using at the start and the end of the trip, and we really did work with the local destination to make sure we had a great hotel to meet the level of expectations for this group.
But I think we should talk about the hotels in Iceland compared to those in the United States and Europe, just to set expectations too.
I agree. I think, the fact that you've been there, Amy, that you've learned a lot. So why don't we share some of that experience?
Sure. So the typical hotel in Iceland is very nice, but it's not the same as your 4 and 5 star hotel that you might find in a typical European or American city. It's going to be well appointed, but more sparse. Think Scandinavian. And it's just not going to have all the bells and whistles of some places that were like a former palace turned into a hotel because tourism wasn't a big thing for Iceland until the last few years. So all the hotels are going to be really nice. And the ones that we're using are the best of the best in Iceland, but they may not be what you're accustomed to in other large European cities.
Again, we have made this hotel selections with this group in mind, but it is important to keep that knowledge in your head as you're experiencing that wonderful destination. So, Amy, let's start jumping in on what we're going to do as soon as we arrive into Iceland.
So when we arrive into Iceland, it's going to be early in the morning. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the Viking World Museum and Cafe. It's a great little museum. It has a replica Viking ship, which you can actually walk on. It's very neat. And we'll have breakfast there. So after we have breakfast, the very next thing we do is go right to the famous Blue Lagoon. And I have to tell you, it is one of the best refreshing ways to come off of a international flight. So we will have time there. They have a great gift shop there. And if you're still hungry, even though we'll have this great big breakfast, there is a little cafe there. But you'll go out into the water. Our passes will include the silica mask that you get to put on, drinks in the water. It's just absolutely amazing. And then from there, we're going to start doing some sightseeing because hotels normally don't let you check in until the afternoon. And there is so much to see and do right in Reykjavik that we might as well take advantage of the time we have. So we're going to be going around the city, seeing all of the major highlights, as well as the Perlan, where we'll have access to the observation deck. And we're going to go up to the church, and the church is called
Hallgrímskirkja.
and we'll go up to the tower. It is the most beautiful look out onto Reykjavik. And then we'll have time to check into the hotel. Everybody will have some time to refresh before we do a welcome dinner. And then we are set for the night.
So, as we mentioned, we are staying on in Reykjavik for another night. So, there's no need to change hotels. We're really just going to continue our exploration of the city on day 3. So, Amy, how do we kick things off on day 3?
Well, we kick things off by flying all over Iceland. So, as Tony mentioned, we're going to be doing the south of Iceland on this departure. And that's really because it's going to be inaccessible to do most of the north of Iceland this time of year. So, there's just one big ring road around Iceland. And during the winter months, it is usually closed off because of the conditions. So, because of that, they have this amazing thing called Fly Over Iceland, where you get to experience everything from a seat on a really neat interactive ride. And so we get to start there before we have some free time. And let me tell you, the shopping in Reykjavik is amazing. It is a very walkable city, it is not very large at all. And there are some great handmade shops, jewelry, um, wool goods, of course. And I will point you to all the best shops and all the great directions while we're there. And then that afternoon, we're going to do something really fun and do a Reykjavik food walking tour. We're going to split up into small groups and we're going to have a guide that is going to walk us through and introduce us to the history of the Icelandic people. And we're going to experience their history through culinary adventures throughout the city. Dinner on your own that night, which, like I said, I will give you some amazing recommendations. And if we're lucky, we'll be chasing the northern lights. So, Tony, let's talk a little bit about how that happens.
Right. So we have it built into the itinerary that, again, this night is the first night you're going to make that attempt. It's really going to depend on the weather conditions as to what you're able to see or not. And so the travel director is going to help make that judgment call as to is this a good night for us to see the Northern Lights or is it not? The good news is that because we're in Reykjavik again at the end of the trip and we're actually heading out into the countryside, we're going to have multiple opportunities to see the Northern Lights.
So, if we don't see them on this first night in Reykjavik and we head out to the countryside, in the countryside hotels, it's even neater because they will actually just call you. You can put your room number on a list, and if the Northern Lights show up, they will call and wake you up, and then everybody just runs outside real quick. And if not, like Tony said, we'll try again when we get back to Reykjavik.
So after we spend those first 2 nights in Reykjavik, on day 4, we are gonna head out from the city and go explore more of Iceland. So we will be on day 4 heading to Thingvellir, Geyser, and Gullfoss. And this is the night of the trip we'll be spending at a hotel where it's just for that night, and that is at the Ion Adventure Hotel.
And we picked that hotel specifically for this group because it's really literally out in the middle of nothing. But that is going to give us a great opportunity again to see the landscape and see the northern lights. So I'm very excited about that. But this first day is what is known as the Golden Circle Tour. It is an absolutely breathtaking and stunning day where we will see so many different types of nature, and it's just absolutely amazing. So we will be visiting Thingvellir National Park
Thingvellir.
to start. Now, this is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and is where the first parliament met for centuries. And the interesting thing is it is located where the American and Eurasian tectonic plates meet, and you can actually see the ridge. And it is this beautiful natural park, and we'll have an opportunity to take a walk through there, see some beautiful waterfalls. Then we will have our second lagoon experience, this one at the Secret Lagoon, which is Iceland's oldest natural pool. So the geothermal pool, it is much less commercialized looking than the Blue Lagoon is. So we'll get to see a second type of geothermal pool.
And I think it's worth mentioning, Amy, that we did, in planning this itinerary, really give consideration to whether we should do 2 lagoon visits as part of the itinerary, right? But there are big differences between the 2, and we thought it was really important for people to have that second opportunity to experience something different.
And then from there, we get to go to the geysers. So there's a geothermal field full of geysers, from little ones bubbling up to the big one that goes off every like minute and a half. Absolutely amazing. Stay on the path. They do get a little warm. And then we go over to Gullfoss Waterfall, which is basically Iceland's Niagara Falls. It's this massive, beautiful waterfall. The great thing about it is there's so many different vantage points depending on how far you want or can walk. So it's accessible for everyone and it's absolutely stunning. Then one of the things I'm most excited about, we are going to Fromir's Tomato and Horse Farm. So this is a greenhouse that grows the tomatoes for most of Iceland. And it also has the Icelandic horses there. Don't call them ponies. They get a little upset if you call them ponies. But we'll have an opportunity to see the horses and have lunch, which will include their specialty Bloody Marys, which I'm excited about.
For sure. They also have a really unique greenhouse set up there, which is actually fed by the hot springs. So it's a really amazing experience. I can't wait for the group to experience that.
And then we're going to leave there and experience another really neat local delicacy because they actually use the ground. Because the ground is so hot, this bakery uses it to bake bread. They put the bread inside of these like cast iron bowls and bury it under the ground, and it actually bakes the bread. So we'll get to experience that as well before heading to the hotel for dinner. Now, dinner in these country hotels are at the hotel, but trust me, you will love these hotels. So it will be a really nice spread. Every night is probably going to be something a little different. You'll get to taste a lot of local things, and then they'll have some specialties. And you will have the opportunity to then spend time with your group. Just, some people brought cards last time, and some of us sat around playing cards, or they brought dice, or they were reading in the lounge. It's just a really nice way to relax and unwind from the day.
All right, so on day 5, we are going to depart from Geyser and head south to the coast, where we'll be spending the next 2 nights at the Krea Hotel. And Amy, this is a jam-packed day that we have in terms of itinerary. So
It is a very jam-packed day, but it's really neat. So first up is Creed Crater. It's a volcanic lake and one of the most stunning sights in the entire country. So we're going to start there before heading over to the waterfalls. First up is Seljalandsfoss
Seljalandsfoss.
and
Skogar.
which are both waterfalls, very different, but you will get to experience 2 different types of waterfalls. There's then the Folk Museum, which is a cultural heritage site. There's tons of artifacts about what it was like living in Iceland over the different periods. It's really an interesting visit. From there, we will head over to the
Reynisfjara.
which is the famous black sand beaches. And if anybody out there is a Game of Thrones fan, you will recognize these beaches as the cave that Jon Snow was in. From there, we will stop and see the famous Icelandic lava show. It recreates an actual historic eruption. And P.S., that is also one of the best gift shops on the island. And then from there, we will go to the hotel for dinner.
all right, so after a busy day, we are staying again that second night at the Hotel Krea, so there's no early rise with packing required on this day. We are going to continue our journey through the Icelandic countryside, and we're going to start off by crossing the largest lava field on Earth.
Eyjafjallajökull.
You are all of a sudden going to wonder what planet you're on. It is just, as far as the eye can see, it is lava field, and it is just so stunning. And from there, we will go to
Vatnajökull.
the national park, which is the largest in Western Europe. And that's where we're going to see the view of the glaciers and the glacier outlet. From there, we go into the actual glacier lagoon called
Jökulsárlón.
where we will get to venture out on Zodiac boats. You'll see floating icebergs. You see the diamonds on the beach, which of course are just icebergs. And if we're very lucky, we'll get to see some seals playing around in the lagoon before heading back for dinner at our hotel.
On day 7, we're going to make our way back to Reykjavik and stay once again at the Canopy by Hilton Hotel for the last 2 nights. But there's going to be plenty of fun activities along the way.
So to start off, we're going to do a very easy hike on
Sólheimajökull.
Glacier. It's led by a certified guide. They're going to navigate. It's a very easy hike. I know the word hike kind of scares people, but it's more of a walk. But you get to actually go up and see the glacier. From there, we're going to go to a very small village called
Hveragerði.
known as the Flower Village. And the reason it's known as that is because there are so many greenhouses there that are heated by those hot springs and they would grow flowers. But one of the neatest things that has grown out of that is the breweries. For a very long time, Tony, it was illegal to have any type of alcohol in Iceland. Part of it was because of the polar nights, how dark it would get, people with depression, that sort of thing. And so they slowly started turning over the laws. But one of the things that was the last to become allowed is actually beer. So beer was not allowed in Iceland until the 1980s. And so now they have a really big brewery culture there. So we are going to go on a brewery tour. So we'll visit the Ulvik Brewery, and then from there, we'll journey back to Reykjavik, where we'll have dinner on our own.
All right. So the start of our final day on the trip, we are going to make the most of it here on day 8 in Reykjavik.
We're going to start off with a boat ride to see if we can find some whales. So we're going to go whale watching, which is going to be super great. And then you're going to have free time. So this is going to be your time for your final exploration of Reykjavik. If there's anything outside of the city that you wanted to do, you can do that on your own today. And of course, final time for shopping in the city before we have our farewell dinner, which is going to be a 6-course chef's menu at a local restaurant.
And I think that'll just be a fabulous way to reconnect with everybody, share your final memories before everyone heads home on our departure on day 9. So on day 9, we will have that group departure to the airport. We will fly back to Newark and say our final goodbyes before everybody makes their own way home from there. So let's talk about the pricing on this Iconic Iceland departure. It is $6,999 for double occupancy per person and $8,649 for single occupancy. There is a $500 deposit that's due at time of booking, and our final payment is due on July 15th of 2025.
And of course, AAA will be with you every step of the way. From our experienced travel advisor who will help you book this adventure to the expert trip leader, that'll be me, who will be with you while you're traveling. In addition, we always have 24/7 worldwide emergency service and all those extra values, special pricing, and of course, our exclusive amenities.
So if you're ready to start planning your vacation with us on Iconic Iceland for 2025, please talk to your AAA travel advisor. If you don't have one, you can easily find one at AAA.com/travel advisor, and you can even schedule an appointment right online to meet with that advisor. So that is the end of our event for today. Thank you, Amy, for joining me and sharing your amazing experience with Iceland and for taking such great care of this group in advance. Thanks also to the team that we have that's been answering your questions throughout today's event. If you do have any follow up questions, again, you can speak to a AAA travel advisor. And we do want to thank you for participating in today's event. It really means a lot to us that you've joined us and that you're giving consideration to booking this fabulous itinerary with us for next year. So thank you, and I hope you have a great day.